All right, back in the IDE that I know and love, VisualBasic.net.
2003.
2003, the first showing of VB 2003 ever. Let's go ahead and show some ADO data access using VisualBasic.net. This is, of course, one of the biggest questions that I get asked from people is, hey, this ADO.net stuff sounds cool, but where's my ADO? We're here to show you. So here's what we've got. We've got a simple data-bound form here. We've got a couple of text boxes. And you'll notice in our Solution Explorer...
I see 3 text boxes there.
Did I say 2?
You said 2.
I was absent the day they taught counting. My bad. Now, you'll notice that we have a reference set to ADODB. Okay, so that is our ADO class libraries.
The same ADO that's in VB6. Today.
You got it. You got it. Now, when I double-click on that in the Solution Explorer, it actually brings up the object browser. All right, so we've got that reference set to ADO saying, hey, I want to use ADO within the context of my VB.NET project. Let's dive into the code, shall we, boss?
We're diving.
We are diving. All right, so.
Dive.
The very what?
Go.
Was that? All right.
We were diving.
All right, I'm with you. All right, so we're in our code here, and the main thing that I want to point out with this code is that it is exactly the same code that you would be writing in VB6 to do ADO, all right? Now, we've got our connection string, and this is going to connect to our SQL Server database. I just jumped up to the definition, to the connection string, and we can see that we have an MSDE connection string as well as a SQL connection string. In this case, we're going to be using SQL. And another cool little feature that we can show here is the ability to navigate backwards in our code.
Get out.
Oh yeah, I ain't lying. Navigate backwards. So it keeps tabs, the IDE keeps tabs on where I've been inside of my code. So now I just jump back to where I was, and we can dive back into that code.
Dive.
You are so helpful during these demos, man. You are good.
You know, it was that last stint on Jacques Cousteau's previous episode.
Yeah, you were good. I saw that. I missed that episode. So, okay, so here we are in our code. We've created a connection to our SQL database using ADO, or ADO Classic, as some people like to call it, all right? We're using a little bit of try-catch exception handling here to make sure that we do make a successful connection to the database.
Nice. A little bit of old, a little bit of new.
Yep. Try-catch. Folks, if you're using the old on-error go-to, give try-catch a try, okay? It is a lot of fun. Now, we've got our SQL statement here that we're going to use to pull the data from our database. Now look at this. I'm highlighting this data, or I'm highlighting these lines of code in a square block. Isn't that kind of cool?
That is pretty cool. How did you do that, Ari?
That's a great question, Chris. I'm glad you asked. By simply holding down the Alt button, I can highlight code in blocks rather than line by line. Isn't that special?
That is special.
Yeah. All right, so we've got our cursor type just as we're used to in VB6. In this case, we're doing static read-only data access to our database because we're not going to be making any updates to the data. We're setting our text boxes here to the value of the fields in our ADO record set. We've declared RS as a record set, an ADO record set.
Oh, RS, record set. It's all starting to come clear to me now.
It starts to make sense, doesn't it? All right, so all the methods that you know and love in ADO, you can use them within the context of VB.NET. So we've got our record set. We can move next. We can move previous. Don't forget to check for EOF. End of file for that record set. That'll get you into trouble. In this scenario here, when I click on Insert, it'll allow me to do an ADO-based insertion, okay? So we've got our insert statement here, just as we would always do in VB6. And again, I'm holding down Alt to highlight that code. Very snazzy.
I am feeling very comfortable.
You're not allowed to do that. You're making me uncomfortable. All right, so we're going to execute that insert statement. And again, main point here, all the things that you could do in ADO, you can still do them within the context of VB.NET. Now, this is kind of cool. What if you've got data stored in an ADO record set and you want to move it into an ADO.NET data set?
That's not possible.
Chris, I've got news for you. It's very possible. Let's go ahead and see how we do this, okay? I'm looking at my code here. Let's go ahead and minimize everything. Let's auto-hide so that we can get maximum coding real estate. I'm getting a little crazy here with all this Alt highlighting of code here. Now, okay, so here's what we're going to do. First, we're going to populate our ADO record set using that select statement that I just highlighted. You'll then notice that I've created ADO.NET data sets and a data adapter. Now, here's the key line I want to look at. We're using this data adapter, DA, to fill up our ADO.NET data set using the stuff, if you will, the stuff that we've already tossed into our ADO record set. And we're going to call this customers. Pretty neat, huh?
That is neat.
It's so neat, I'm going to run it for you right now, boss. We're going to connect to the SQL Server. We've got our application, and on form load, we're going to go ahead and populate the data-bound text fields. We can navigate around within the context of the customers table. We have the ability to insert and update records, but the thing I want to show you is moving that ADO record set into an ADO.NET data set. When we click on that button, we're going to go ahead and take all the stuff that we put into that record set, and we're going to move it over into an ADO.NET data set. Are you excited?
That's great. So I can move from VB6 to VB.NET. I can continue to use ADO the same way I've always used it, but I can now migrate slowly from what I used to know to the new ADO.NET technology. Technology, is that right? Is that right?
For a complete and total slow study, you're not that bad, man. You are not that bad. Let's move over to the next part of this demo one. I want to cram a lot of stuff into this demo, okay? So we've got another project here. We've got another Windows form, and now we're talking all straight up ADO.NET, okay?
All right, break it down for me.
Let's break it down, shall we? All right, here's what we've got. We've got a simple Windows form application, and what I want to show here are the various data types that you can use to bind ADO.NET based data, okay? So we've got a combo box on the form, and then we've got a bunch of different data types, from arrays to array lists, new in VB.NET, to data sets. And we want to bind all of these to that combo box. So you'll see the first thing that we're doing here as soon as we load up the form is we're going to create a new SQL connection and a new SQL data adapter. All right? Now that SQL data adapter, those objects that we're creating are the same type of objects that you could actually drag and drop onto your form from the toolbox as we see here. Notice anything new, Chris?
I see a new Oracle data provider. Is that new to 2003?
Indeed it is. Indeed it is. How about a round of applause for Oracle, everyone? Woo! Yeah, yeah. So yeah, in VB.NET 2003, we have new managed providers for Oracle as well as for the more generic ODBC.
And that Oracle works on both 7i and 8i as well, right?
I believe that is correct. So
my job here is done.
I don't think so. We're just getting started. So we've got our data adapter, okay, and it's this data adapter that we're going to use to pull information from the SQL Server database. We've got the data adapter, we're calling the fill method on it, and we're filling our data set called DS products. You can see the constant name, product table name there that we've got. Now, here's what's kind of cool. We've got a data view. A data view is, can you guess? It's a view on some data, okay? So we pull information into a data set, then we create a data view that will allow us to sort or, for example, sort that data based on different columns and so on. So data view is very, very cool.
So is data view a new concept to VB.NET?
Yeah, it might be new to some people out there. I've been working with data views all my life, okay? Yeah. So anyway, simple data binding, okay? We just took a quick look. Yes, we just took a quick look at how easy it is to bind data to an array. Just rewind the tape if you want to see that again, folks. It's amazing how easy it is. Now let's look at binding to an array list. An array list is a new object that we have with the .NET framework, and it allows us to dynamically add stuff to a collection, to an array, at runtime. It also allows us to add collections of stuff. Isn't that cool?
Arrays of collections.
Arrays of stuff, if you will. Now, we have the other cool thing about array lists, by the way, is that they can store lots of different data types. So in this case, we have a structure called divisions, okay? And we're taking a look at the definition of divisions right now. This actually shows sales divisions for a company, and we've got some variables in there. We also have properties, we have methods, just as you would inside of a class. So the structure is very, very flexible, if you will. Let's navigate back to our code, and all we're doing here when we bind that to a combo box is you can see with combo box 1, I'm setting the data source to my divisions, and my divisions is that array list. So the same thing applies to array lists as applies to arrays. You can bind to a combo box very simply by simply setting the data source to the array or to the array list. And we'll take a look at this in just a second.
VB has gotten incredibly powerful.
Wake the up, boss.
Wow.
All right. So last thing I want to show here is binding to a data source. Okay, so a data source, just as we had populated before in this demo, we have a data source, we fill it up using a data adapter, and then we can simply bind that combo box to the data source. Remember that data view we were talking about? It's a sorted view of that data source. Let's go ahead and check out the definition of that.
Let's go to that definition.
Yeah, all right. So we've got our data view, similar to a data set, but it allows us to do sorting and grouping of data that we're looking at inside of our application. I tell you what, I'm just going to go ahead and run this. We're going to connect to SQL Server, and let's see this mofo in action.
More mo.
Mo. So I click on array, we bind to the array, okay, and we can see that the data source is set to array. Click on array list, same basic idea, okay. The array list advanced, we'll take a second to bind there. There we go. Now we've got the combo box bound, and we also have an associated value because we're pulling information from that structure, okay.
I see.
Do you have any idea what I'm doing here? Any idea? All right.
What is that button?
We just click on the data set. You are so fired. We just click on data set. We bind to a data set. And again, we've got Grandma's boysenberry spread.
Ah.
Are we allowed to show that? I don't know. So we just showed Grandma's boysenberry spread.
I think Grandma signed the release yesterday.
Good old Graham. So, and we can also bind to a data view. Very, very simple, all quick and easy with VB.net.